you cannot escape this. And it's a part of the problem in our conversation in our country.
Hey, welcome to Ascend the Hill with Jeremy Austill. I'm Jonathan. This is Pastor Jeremy. How's it going?
It's good. It's good to be back in the office after our snowmageddon, our ice apocalypse of the last week.
Yeah, it was wild. Of course, like the day or day and a half after it, the main roads were fine where I was at, but it was me getting the third of the mile down my road to get to that main road. That was the treacherous part.
Oh, no doubt. I think most people, their driveway and their neighborhood, their cul-de-sacs, that was the most treacherous part. I loved it. I loved. I every year I want a good snow or ice that, for 2 or 3 days everything kind of shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's almost like a gift. As a family, you get to be together. Of course, it went longer than it needed to.
Yep.
By Wednesday afternoon, it was like, oh man, we're going to still be in this a couple more days. And then on top of that, like doing the fast, like fasting while you're kind of shut away in your home, is because part of being shut away on a snow day is just eating.
Yeah, munching.
and you couldn't really, so had to be super regimented about that. And so, but anyway, it was good. Our kids were out of school. They're still out of school today, and I don't know if they'll go to school tomorrow or not, but good. It was super cold.
Yep.
We didn't get out much.
It got cold. There was one time where I think at night the wind chill got into the negatives.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we have officially hit the age where our kids don't care about playing in the snow.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, every year, I think it's dreaded. They're going to want to play in the snow. And it's cold and miserable, but I've got great hunting gear that fits me. And so, I mean, I can waddle around in the snow and not get wet and not really get that cold other than like in your little, the seams between your glove and your shirt or whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't have as good a gear. And so you deal with the inevitable. They're freezing, they're miserable, but they don't want to leave it. So this year it's like, all right, are we doing this? I mean, it's like the biggest snow we've gotten in a long time. Hey, are we doing this?
Yeah.
And they're like, nah. Of course, inside I was like, yes.
I don't know how much you got where you were at, up where I was at. It was around 5 inches.
Yeah, about the same.
Yeah. And I was determined it was Tuesday, to go to the store and get some. I just need to get out.
Yeah.
And my wife was out of town for a work thing, so she couldn't come back yet. So I literally was at the home with the dog, and so I was like, I need to leave. I'm getting cabin fever. I'm just by myself, so I had to shovel the drive. Yeah. It was so cold that by the time I get done shoveling the driveway, literally I couldn't feel my hand. Like there's that people are like, well, I can't feel my fingers or stuff. It's just cold. But no, like legit is like, no, this is gonna hurt when I start feeling it again. So yeah, it got cold. It got freezing. I didn't play out in the snow either. I had movies going while I was doing stuff, so it was.
Well, I some people are like, I got to get out. I got to get out. I got to get out.
Yeah.
Me saying it needed to end was more about we need to have church Sunday.
Yes.
And like I need this to be fixed so we can have church Sunday. But by nature, like I'm not I got to get out. I got to get out. I got to get out type person. I'm like I can bunker down right here. I mean, I do it a lot of times. I come to work. And I just bunker down all day. Like I don't need to run around, flit about. Like I just kind of lock in wherever I am. And so I didn't mind that part. Now a couple of times, like I need some fresh air. So I put all the hunting gear on, the face mask, and I'd walk around the neighborhood, with the chief aim being don't break a bone, like don't fall. and I didn't, thank goodness. But anyway, it was nice, and I'm glad it's now behind us.
Yeah, and it's almost behind us. It's been raining today. It's in like the 50s, so there you go. And it brings up something a little fun that we can do before we get into talk about the past 2 weeks of sermons and everything. Is real quick some top 10 things that you've enjoyed, I guess, over the years when it does snow, and just rating them 1 through 10.
Okay.
So applying a number 1 through 10, 10 being awesome, 1 being never want to do that.
Okay.
And here's the first one: sledding. How you feel about sledding?
I'm like a 4. It's overrated.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, you can't really sled fast enough for it to be really thrilling.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like It's like, well, we're going sledding.
Yeah,
and we're going 2 miles an hour. Maybe I'm not on the right hill. I don't know.
Well, and where we're at too, like Tennessee is known for being hilly, but all the hills are like a little drive away if you're going to do something huge. You know?
Yeah.
Snow ice cream.
Again, overrated.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like
okay.
a 2 or 3. Just get some ice cream.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's like a tradition. We've done it, and it's like, it just, like, I don't care what you say. It's not as good as actual ice cream.
Yeah,
So.
better hope you're not in the place with the acid rain, the acid snow, you know. And,
Right.
Building a snowman.
Overrated.
Yeah.
Notice we got a trend here. No, it's okay, but the problem with snowmen is the effort and precision required to do one that well and comparable to what you'd see on TV. It's just way more work and effort than you want to put in, especially if you're doing it with your kids.
Yeah.
Because they just want to build a snowman. They don't, I mean, and so it's like, it's kind of like building a sandcastle.
Yeah.
If the kids are going to help, this is not going to be an epic sandcastle. And I don't want to do this by myself.
Yeah.
So it just kind of offsets each other. So.
Snowball fight.
Fun.
Yep.
Yeah, give me an 8 on that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I like that. I like pelting people with snowballs and getting pelted. Like, that's fun. And when we do and have played in the snow with the kids, that's probably been the funnest part. Just like throwing snowballs, rolling around, wrestling in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
All of that's super fun. Yeah, I like throwing the snowballs.
Yeah, I used to live in Indiana, northern by the Michigan border, and so we'd have like crazy snow, but you play snowball fights, and there'd be every once in a while someone get pelted in the face, but there's a little bit of ice in that snowball, and there's a little bit of blood.
It's guaranteed. Yeah. Like, somebody's gonna be mad.
Yeah.
It's gonna get down like in the neck and be freezing. But that's just I'm down for a good snowball fight.
Yeah. Last couple ones. This is indoors, hot chocolate bar, or just hot chocolate in general while it's snowing outside.
Nah. Give me coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me coffee. I mean, maybe some creamer in it or something, on a cold day, but I want my coffee.
Yeah.
Hot chocolate lacks the one very important, piece to the equation, and that's caffeine.
Yep.
So
last one. Ice skating.
Absolutely not.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, I've ice skated. Interestingly enough, anybody that's from Memphis that's our age or older will remember that there used to be a mall in Memphis called the Mall of Memphis, and they had a huge ice skating rink right in the middle of the mall.
Oh, wow.
Food court overlooked it, and we went ice skating numerous times through the years there. And number one, I wasn't good at it. It's hard. Ice skating is no joke. It's a difficult thing to do. And, again, I'm at the point in life where not breaking a bone is a high priority to me. Like, not having to go to the ER. So, no, I'm out on the ice skating. I'm just not. There's some stuff I don't need to master at this point in life. So.
Well, you heard it here first. Ice skating. No, I'm kidding.
No, we're not doing it.
Well, the past couple of weeks, obviously with the snow week, we've missed a sermon in the sermon series, We Are. And that was the second week, We Are a Blessed Family.
Yes.
And you really highlighted the topic of blessed. The first week was all about family. If you want to go back and watch those or listen to them, I'll link them in the description of this podcast feed or the video if you're watching it. And I think it was really important to talk about the topic of blessed because you address a few different topics of how blessing can sometimes feel like a negative in our culture, I guess, or even talking about it.
Yeah, just even the way we use the word, having to be mindful or just needing to be mindful of how that word plays in different contexts and how that word hits different hearers.
Yeah.
And just having enough humility and introspection to think through, like, what am I saying when I say this word?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to me? And then by like secondary consequence, what does it mean to other people? And again, I don't want us, and I hope I didn't create this conundrum in us where we are so, analytical about everything we say there's nothing wrong with saying I'm blessed. Like I have a car, I'm blessed. There's nothing. I mean, I would never correct anybody for that.
Yeah.
But more so, it was about having a more robust, thoughtful idea and definition of what that means for me and what it means in the earth. I think as a believer that we have the responsibility to think through all of our religious platitudes. I'm not a person, several years ago, there was just this big movement to erase Christianese.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a Christian word. You shouldn't say hallelujah because the unbeliever doesn't know what that means. You shouldn't say sanctification because I personally think that's hogwash.
Yeah.
Like I think we're a part of a kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Kingdom has a language and a dialect. We're a part of a culture. A culture has language and verbiage. I think if a person is going to another nation with another language and you are actually wanting to be immersed in that culture and really become intimate with that culture, then a part of that is learning the language.
Yeah.
And so when I use some of the words I use, that are maybe quote Christianese, I'm not doing it insensitively to the person that doesn't know what that means.
Yeah.
I am doing it kind of making a statement that like this kingdom, this culture has a certain language, and I'm inviting you in to learn it. And I'm hoping I'm saying it and it's causing you not to, because I believe in the best in people, and I believe that people are better than we give them credit for in a lot of ways. So I believe most people, when they hear a word they don't know,
Mm-hmm.
their response isn't, well, I'm out because I don't know what that means. Their response is, let me find out what that means.
Yeah.
And it puts them on a journey of discovery, right?
Yeah.
So all that back to say, I'm not trying to like weed out the word blessed as some variant of Christianese. I just want us to really have a rich textured thinking of it. And I mentioned in the message, the way we use the word blessed is not inherently wrong. It's not wrong, but let's make sure we really know the foundation of the word.
Yeah.
Like what it really means to be blessed. And as we learned in the message, what it means to be blessed is that God has blessed humanity with the capacity, the empowerment, and the authority. And those are words that I just use to try to describe what happened in the Genesis 1 account, right?
Yeah.
Those words aren't, gospel. Those are just words I use to try to describe what happened, and also using what we read in John 1:12 when we were given the right to be sons of God, and that word exousia, the word right coming from the Greek exousia, which means jurisdiction, authority, et cetera, et cetera. So being blessed is knowing that as a human made in God's image, like he has given us the capacity, the empowerment, and the authority to handle the world around us in a way that brings God's goodness into the world, brings glory to him, and betters the world around us.
Yeah.
And also in the process creates success and fruitfulness to be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that's important is because when you look at your life and you try to determine if you're blessed or not based on what you have, then you are missing that root meaning of blessing, that even if you don't have anything, you're still blessed. And because you're blessed, you have the capacity, empowerment, and authority to work the world around you and get out of whatever hole that you're in.
Yeah.
Right. And then obviously in the conversation, we talked about how you've got to be careful to not use blessed or evaluate blessed solely based on wealth or possessions, because if you're not careful, you'll miss the heart of God in it, which is more about, are you leveraging the blessing for the reason you were given the blessing?
Yeah.
Which was the goodness and benefit of the world and the glory of God.
Yeah. And how do we balance being blessed with also an understanding of Christ saying things like, the world will hate us for following him, where, and I think even Paul says it in his epistles, of sharing in the sufferings of Christ. And I think people can, we talked about it a little bit in the sermon, but maybe a little deeper. People can take it too far and be like, well, I'm blessed, but I ought to think this way in a suffering, in
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
mentality, rather than, it could probably be both and, right?
Right. Yes. And I think that's so much of the problem with like our American theological paradigm. And it's kind of developed in like on the same parallel timeline with like our political divide in society, where now in society it's black or white. You have to pick a side.
Yeah.
And you villainize everybody on the other side. And unfortunately, what's happened between the Democrat Republican dynamic in our country has happened in Christendom too.
Yeah.
And so you'll have a Christian that will pick the quote blessed side and will villainize everybody that doesn't agree and wants to focus on suffering and difficulty, and we should be impoverished. And then you'll have everybody on that side that villainizes everybody on the blessed side.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, what we're doing in that is we are violating Jesus.
Yeah.
Like we have hijacked Jesus for our particular theological paradigm instead of understanding Jesus in his totality, that it is both.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am blessed. Now, sometimes that blessing gives me the capacity, the empowerment, and the authority to work my situation to see like tangible, measurable, economic, whatever, flourishing.
Yeah.
Right. But sometimes that blessed is like Paul said, I can do all things. I'm blessed with the capacity. I'm blessed with the authority. I'm blessed with the empowerment to suffer.
Yeah.
And to not be crushed or killed by it.
Mm-hmm.
To be hated. And interestingly enough, it's just, I think it's really interesting that when you are trying to fight for that middle ground, you become an enemy to everybody.
Yeah.
Like when you try to fight for the middle ground, you're the enemy of the people, in this particular context, like you're the enemy of the people on the blessed side, and you're the enemy on the people of the suffering and blessed are the meek side.
Yeah.
And you're in the middle trying to fight for both. And in a foolish way, you become the enemy of so many believers, and it's silly. It's absolutely silly. I think being an enemy, or being hated by the world is because of our prophetic witness. It's because of our morality, because of our unwillingness to validate, capitulate, or participate in things that are immoral that society says are okay.
Yeah.
Like, and so you get hated for your stance against abortion. You get hated for your stance about gender identity being male and female.
Yeah.
Now, the extra layer then as Christians is like, we don't run around, poor mouthing or waving a banner of pride that we've been persecuted. Like we're just being a faithful prophetic Christian witness in the earth. It's our humble place in the earth.
Yeah.
And so, I think, but when you go back to blessed at its root, then you can be balanced.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can embrace both difficulty, suffering, and embrace fruitfulness, progress, advancement, success.
Yeah.
And the reality of life is that we are going to face both.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to face both along the way. But I do believe a significant part of the Christian witness is flourishing.
Mm-hmm.
To be an oasis in a desert land, to be life in the middle of death. And part of that is that and it's part of our values, like through my biblical maturity, applying the word of God and trusting that it works, through my soul health of not being governed by fear, anxiety, and insecurity, all of that stuff, anger, jealousy, whatever. Like I am constantly in a cycle of good decisions. And because I'm in this cycle of good decisions, I'm flourishing.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes in the flourishing, you run across somebody who has the ability to block certain things in your life. All right, now, like, how do I work with that? Well, I'm blessed to figure out how to work with it, right? But I go all the way back to the original covenant with God and Abraham. And it was a covenant of you're going to possess land.
Yeah.
You're going to multiply and outnumber the sea. You are going to be blessed in like, you're going to be successful. You're going to be noted for your ability to work the land and your ability to gain possession. You're going to be noted for those things. Now, the covenant with Abraham also had planted within it this. The whole reason all of that's happening is because I've chosen you to get Christ into the earth.
Yeah.
And so like your flourishing isn't for self-advancement. Like you might get advanced as a result, but it has to stay rooted in getting the Christ in the earth.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important because I do believe biblical principles, soul health, spiritual vitality, no matter the context you're in, causes you to make good decisions in that context.
Yeah.
And life in general is so much a matter of the accumulation of our decisions. Did we make good decisions or did we not?
Yeah.
Another example, I've for weeks now, I've been in Second Chronicles, and I've watched, king after king. In Second Chronicles, there will, every chapter is devoted to a king. Some chapters might be, some kings might get 2 or 3 chapters, but within that chapter, it is clear as a bell. Like that king is blessed to choose. They have the capacity, the empowerment, the authority to make decisions. And the decisions they make as it pertains to how they honor God either leads to wealth, prosperity, protection, peace, health, and wholeness for the people.
Yeah.
Or it leads to their walls being torn down. It leads to wealth being carried away by enemies. It leads to chaos.
Exile.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so even like each king account is just another microcosm of this blessing that's been put on us that we choose how we leverage it.
Yeah.
And when we leverage it right, like things go well for us. And I said it in the message, man, it was so important for me to strike the balance of, I never want to, and I don't think that I look at people who are struggling, whether it's financially, relationally, emotionally, whatever, with condescension or judgment.
Yeah.
Like I have a compassion there. I hurt, right? Simultaneously, like I know, like it's just you cannot escape this. And it's a part of the problem in our conversation in our country.
Yeah.
Like you can't escape that at some point, like your decisions either dig a deeper hole or your decisions build a staircase out of it.
Yeah.
And so holding that tension of like, I hurt for you, I grieve with you, I'm compassionate toward you, but hey, there is a way out of this.
Yeah.
Like you can do this. You can get out of this that you're in.
Yeah.
I think again, in our nation that's not allowed.
Yeah.
You just can't even hardly have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because we've gotten into such a who's privileged, who's not, who, who's to blame, who's at fault, why am I in this predicament? And I think every human should it's amazing how much we call for personal agency and self-autonomy and like, don't try to tell me what to do, whatever. But then at times when people get in difficulty, for whatever reason, they suspend all of that personal agency, self-autonomy. Can't nobody tell me. And like they want to blame everybody else.
Yeah.
They want to find a reason why they're in the hole and why they can't get out of the hole. And I think it's just this major like black hole of cognitive dissonance in our society of just like, I have to own some responsibility for myself.
Yeah.
But I think everybody that's listened to me for months and the people that have known me for years know, man, and it's one of the reasons I had such a deep compassion and burden working with younger people. Because when you're 15 years old, you had no say in the hand you were dealt.
Yeah.
Now, at 15, you might have started making decisions that make it worse.
Yeah.
Right? But man, you didn't pick your parents. You didn't pick your economic status. You didn't pick the house you lived in. You didn't pick the like trends and traits of your family. Like you didn't pick any of that.
Yeah.
And so, man, you're left just trying to figure out what to do with this. And for me, it was always really important to say, I see you.
Yeah.
I see that. I feel that. Like you got an advocate and an ally in me. But at the same time, let me help you figure out how to not repeat the cycle. Let me help you figure out how to change things generationally for your family. So now you take that to an adult. Now I'm ministering primarily to adults, and I could still look at the person and say, the junk that happened to you when you were 14, the mess, I see you. I feel you. What your spouse did to you when you were 22,
yeah,
I see you. I feel you. I hurt. You've got an advocate and an ally in me. Now, let's figure out how to get you past this and get you out of this.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how to get you into God's best for you. And that feels like that's my, like that's that right there is like the scale in my mind balancing every week that I preach.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it, as we wrap up here, it kind of leads into the thought and the impact of what this past Sunday was. And if last week we talked about you're blessed, you have the authority, or the capacity, empowerment, and authority. This week we talk about doing hard things, even though they're not technically connected in the series, they can feel connected because maybe we're blessed to do hard things.
Yes.
And it seems like that blessing to be able to do hard things actually is for our benefit, because I know in my life personally, when you do the hard thing, you usually come out on the other side, not only like you said, the message, better for it, softer heart towards the Lord, more humility, but also you realize, oh, I can do these things. And it gives you a confidence to face more in the future.
Yes. And often, I mean, so often, maybe the overwhelming majority of the time, the difficult thing that you need to do, the reason it's difficult is because you had a cycle or pattern in your life.
Oh, yeah.
And that cycle and pattern, the difficult thing is breaking from that cycle and pattern. Like, and so that's why it's difficult. Like and that's why I mentioned, like, it's barricaded by fear. It's barricaded by insecurity. It's barricaded by anxiety. Like, the enemy doesn't want you to do the hard thing. He doesn't want you to break the cycle. He doesn't want you to change course.
Yeah.
And so he's going to fight in that area. And a lot of times he's like pulls the strings on the stuff that's been running you the whole time. Right. But yes, doing difficult things. And there's a lot of layers to that. And I don't know that I got too deep into it. I more just wanted to have an overarching sentiment that, like, we do the difficult thing, we don't run from it. But sometimes the difficult thing is integrity, telling the truth. Like, that is the difficult thing. Like, or sometimes the difficult thing is having the hard conversation, whether it's warning somebody else or saying what you need to say so you have some peace, right? sometimes the difficult thing is a decision you have to make that is going to cost you friends, or it's going to cost you some trust with people, because they have trusted that you are who you've been.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the version of you they like.
Mm-hmm.
That's the version of you they picked. But maybe that's an inferior version of you.
Yeah.
And so to do the difficult thing to like cross over into what God has for me, and suddenly they don't trust the way they did, not because you've become untrustworthy, but because they picked that version of you. And now you are choosing to break out of that box, and they're like, I don't like this part of the new you. So there's a cost to doing the difficult thing. There's a cost. And there's a cost to living in the blessing.
Yeah.
Like there's a sacrifice to be made. There's a price to be paid. But reality, I think I made a post about it this week. The actual cost, when you really boil it down, is my flesh.
Yeah.
It's some variant of self-preservation. Doing the difficult thing. I've found like this is a tension point with me. I've observed it in other leaders. Like doing the difficult thing of having the conflict, like addressing the conflict, having the tough conversation, doing the difficult decision. But the reason you don't is because like you see all the conflict that decision will create.
Yeah.
That thing will create. And so you're hesitant to do the thing you need to do because you see all of the other negatives it'll create. Well, in the process, in trying to avoid this conflict over here, you are intensifying that conflict over there.
Yeah.
Like you can't avoid the conflict. Like you're going to have conflict no matter what.
Yeah.
So do the thing you need to do.
Yeah.
And live with the conflict it creates. Otherwise, you are living in the crush of conflict on all sides.
Yeah.
You can't live that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I've heard someone say, they're like, we pray this prayer, Lord, help me to see trouble before it comes. Help me to understand what to do and have the courage to carry it out.
Yes.
So I don't have to deal with those kind of fallout things.
Yeah.
And, we've been going through, of course, we had the off week. We've been going through our We Are series. And this week we leave We Are a Blessed Family. Yeah. And we travel into, what's our next topic?
No, we're still there.
Oh, we're still in it. Hey, there you go. Part 2, right? Is that part 2, part 3, or part 3 of Blessed Family?
Blessed Family.
What's the
So this week we're going to talk about generosity.
Hey.
Blessed to be a blessing.
Yes.
And I'd spent the snow week prepping the message. And then I felt like I want to hold this until we get back in the normal flow of things. Because again, we're talking about a core value. And so I want to make sure that I communicate it well. So we'll talk about generosity. We'll talk about our heart. We'll talk about function. So we'll break down a text in the New Testament, and the text has 3 very specific themes in it. And I'll touch on each of the 3 themes. And it'll be a really good day. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And by Sunday, all the snow will be gone. It may be a little wet because it may rain, but the weather will be fine. So we're looking forward to seeing everyone in the house, in church on Sunday.
Let me pause for everybody that was able to make it this past Sunday. It was just good to be together.
Yes, it was fun.
I really enjoyed, and I don't say that throwing shade at those that didn't make it. I'm not that guy. I just want you to know that I enjoyed being in the room with those that were in the room, and I'm looking forward to this week getting back. Hey, invite friends. Like it's that time. Who we are as a church, and who we're going to be. Like the pieces are starting to come into place to where, like, if somebody comes now, what they're experiencing, like they're getting a pretty good taste of who we are and who we're going to be going forward.
Yeah,
and so it's a good time to start letting people know, hey, come check out our church.
Yeah, well, we'll see you Sunday, and we look forward to continuing our series, We Are.